You are watching New York Giants Now by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Marshall Green. As always, we got a mailbag coming up, which aired from our live show. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Go down right now, hit that big red button, and turn on your notifications. That way you get alerted anytime we go live, because our live shows are moving from Wednesdays to Monday afternoon, and I want to see all you there. Subscribe and hit that bell icon underneath the video so you get alerted anytime Giants Now by Chat Sports puts a video out. Victor Fernandez says, will the Giants grab Jackson Smith-Njigba if he falls? If Njigba is there at 25, I would absolutely love to draft Jackson Smith-Njigba. He was an elite receiver in 2021, 2022 for the Ohio State Buckeyes. I view him as a slot receiver, though, in the NFL. He's not a burner. He's not one of the fastest guys in the combine, but he's going to be someone I think has more of a feel for the receiver position than a lot of people. His ability to get open with quickness and route running and being able to sit down in the holes of the defense, I think is what separates a guy like Jackson Smith-Njigba. Mel Kiper just released his most recent mock draft. He had Njigba, going to pick number 13 to the New York Jets. I'm not sure he falls all the way to 25, but it is a long way until the NFL draft. Anything can happen. If he's there, I'd love to grab Jackson Smith-Njigba. Pokey Moore, my man, says, serious question, Marsh. If we can't give Saquon the money he wants, think the Cowboys try and take him from us since Zeke is dog water? Also, what do you think we'll do with James Washington? So I'll answer the first part first. If we can't give Saquon the money he wants, I think the Giants will franchise tag Saquon Barkley if they can't come up with a long-term extension. Then he either plays it out on the franchise tag or they trade him. I don't believe the Cowboys are a team that would trade for Saquon Barkley, and I don't believe the Giants would trade him to Saquon Barkley. Ezekiel Elliott, he's either going to be cut or he's going to have to take a massive pay cut to stick with the Cowboys. So that's what I think happens for Saquon Barkley. He's either franchise tagged, they trade him, off the tag and trade, or they sign him to a long-term deal. And he says also, what do you think will happen with James Washington? I think he'll be a part of the Giants for the offseason. He'll be there for training camp, mini camp, OTAs, and have the opportunity to earn a roster spot. When you see someone claimed like that at the end of the season, it's more for the future deals. We talked about how he probably wouldn't play against the Vikings or Eagles. He did not. James Washington is definitely a name that I'm going to keep my eye on, though, as the NFL offseason is here and the workouts and Giants workouts come up down the line. Albert T. says, do you think the Giants could sign a tight end maybe like Mike Gesicki? Sounds like he's done in Miami. Yeah, he pretty much told Miami bye in a presser, so he's going to be a free agent. He says, I like Bellinger, but he seems more like a tight end too. I don't hate that. So let's take a look at Daniel Bellinger versus Mike Gesicki and what they did in the 2022 season. Mike Gesicki, 32 grabs. I mean, Daniel Bellinger for a rookie was kind of a better player than he was for the expectations that are placed upon them. Gesicki is much better of a pass catcher. 5 touchdowns on 32 grabs this year, but this was the worst season, of Mike Gesicki's career. When you look at what he did in 2021, he had 73 grabs, 780 yards, and 2 touchdowns. In the previous 2 years, he had 50-plus grabs in each year. Mike Gesicki is a receiving tight end. He's like a Travis Kelce, whereas Daniel Bellinger is an inline blocking tight end. I actually do think that they would be a good tight end duo for this football team. I just wonder if the Giants want to allocate their salary cap space to a high-end tight end like Mike Gesicki. I think he's a great player. He's extremely athletic. He's one of the best receiving tight ends in the National Football League. And if you're able to maintain Mike Kafka, could Gesicki slide in and try to be that Travis Kelce for this offense? I think it's an interesting question, Albert, so I want to ask you guys. Should the Giants sign Mike Gesicki? What do you think? Should the Giants sign Mike Gesicki? I would probably pass unless it's a very cheap deal. I like him as a player. I think there's more needs on this football team. If the price is right, I'll do it, but I'm not overpaying and paying too much for Mike Gesicki. I like Bellinger, but I do agree that I think he's more of a tight end 2 down the line. What do you think? Type S for sign, type P for pass. Ryan Clipping says, what do you think the Giants' record will be next season? It's just so hard to predict at this point, Ryan, because I don't even know who's going to be on half of the teams in the National Football League. There's so much turnover year to year. But I think it's another team another season in which the Giants can compete for a playoff spot, compete in the NFC East, and finish above 500. That's what I'm expecting out of the Giants. No time for steps backward. It's only times for steps forward. That's what I'm expecting from the Giants this year. Be better than you were last year. That's my expectations this year, Ryan. Matthew Valverde says, I think our offense will be scary if we keep Saquon and Hodgins, trade for T. Higgins, and focus on drafting linemen and linebackers and corners to secure the defense. What do you think? I agree. I think you got to get a number one wide receiver in here, Matthew, and I'd love to get a guy like T. Higgins. Some of the receivers I'm going to have on my radar are T. Higgins, Brandon Ayuk, DeAndre Hopkins. Those type of guys are the guys I'm going to be looking at. Maybe a guy like DJ Moore. We talked about him at the trade deadline. New coach, new front office in Carolina. Still no QB over there. Maybe he tries to force his way out. But, yeah, I think you've got to get more linemen, especially the interior offensive linemen, Matthew, on offense. You need a playmaker at linebacker and another cornerback, too, alongside of Dory Jackson. I think you hit the nail on the head. That's where the Giants need to improve. And I think if they do, our offense will be scary, and I think we'll be back in the playoffs and be a team that not a lot of teams are going to want to play. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel, though, youtube.com/NYGiantsTV. We're putting out videos every single day, all off season long, on the latest Giants news and Giants rumors. We're going to cover NBA, NFL free agency. We're going to cover the NFL draft. No one's going to cover the Giants better than we are in the offseason. I can guarantee you that. Hit that big red button, youtube.com/NYGiantsTV. Dejon Ferguson, my man. Shout out for the $50 super chat. He says we need more help on the O-line, and you're absolutely right, Dejon Ferguson. Nick Gates is a free agent. John Feliciano is a free agent. I'm cool with Andrew Thomas. I'm cool with giving Evan Neal another year. Mark Lewinsky can get one more year at right guard, but you need a left guard and you need a center. I think it was very evident, Dejon, in that Philadelphia Eagles game that the Giants were not in the class that the Eagles were at the point of attack at the line of scrimmage. 100% right. Got to get better on the offensive line. I'd look for the draft and free agency. I'm interested to see, though, how the rookies do that were drafted this year, like Marcus McKeithen and Joshua Azudu out of North Carolina, drafted in the 2022 NFL Draft for the Giants. Both got hurt. I'm excited to see what they do this offseason, but you still got to upgrade those positions. Competition brings out the best. Let's get the best 5 linemen and get them on the field. Marco says, which wide receiver is most realistic between Higgins, Ayuk, Addison, or any other receiver? This is a good question. I think the most realistic is probably Addison because the Giants don't have to make a trade, right, to get him. They could draft him in the NFL draft. Whether he's there at number 25 or not, that's to be determined. But I'd say that's the most realistic. I think Higgins and Ayuk are kind of in the same position. The Cincinnati Bengals have a lot of high-profile players to pay. Joe Burrow contract coming. Jamar Chase is going to want to be the highest-paid receiver in the NFL. Do they have enough money also with their running back, Joe Mixon, to pay a guy like T. Higgins who's going to want $20 million? I think the same goes for a guy like Brandon Ayuk. You got Trent Williams. You got George Kittle. You got Fred Warner. You got Deebo Samuel. You got Christian McCaffrey. You have a lot of Nick Bosa. So many. Charvarius Ward. The 49ers have one of the highest top-end cap hits on their roster. I think both of these guys right here, Higgins and Ayuk, can be had in a trade. But if I had to say the most realistic, I'd probably say Addison because he is a person that's going to be in the NFL draft. But I think both those guys could be a trade option for New York. We'll get to more questions coming up in a second. But I want to let you know about our proud sportsbook partner, BetUS. Go to chatsports.com/bet and use that promo code CHAT125 for 125% deposit bonus. The NFL season may be over for the Giants, but the NFL playoffs are here. Bet on the championships, bet on the Super Bowl, bet on the Knicks. MLB is just around the corner. Get started with BetUS because we've got your game. Chatsports.com/bet. Make sure you use the promo code CHAT125 for that 125% deposit bonus. Mike Francis says, what would be the worst pick in round 1 that G-Men can do? It's kind of hard to answer, Mike, but I don't want to draft another running back in round 1. I've seen some people talk about if the Giants let Saquon Barkley go in free agency or they trade him, they could draft a Bijan Robinson out of Texas in round 1 and try to keep that high-level talent at the running back position, have him cost-controlled for the next 5 years. That makes sense, but there's just so many more holes on this team than drafting a running back in that first spot. Drafting a left tackle, you don't need one. I think drafting a quarterback in round 1 would be a bad choice. Drafting a kicker or punter, Jay Liv says, yeah. Mike, worst pick. I'm BPA, best player available, but I don't want to draft someone at a position where the Giants are already strong, like nose tackle, left tackle. I don't really want a quarterback in the first round this year. I'm rolling with Danny Dimes next year. Last question on this mailbag. Sammy G says the Giants need a linebacker. They do. We've had a lot of receiver questions, but the Giants also need a linebacker. 100% right, Sammy. And he says, and Levante David is a free agent. Yes, he is. One of the best linebackers of this generation. Said could be the vet we need. You want to talk about having an elite linebacker? Levante David is that. 124 tackles last year for the Bucs, 10 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, 5 pass breakups. He's able to do everything you want on the football field from a linebacker position. He has sideline to sideline speed, even though he's already over 30 years old. I do like that he's a vet, though. I think this team could use another veteran in that linebacker spot. The 10 tackles for loss is a great statistic. He makes plays at the line of scrimmage and past it. He's a game changer. 3 sacks can blitz, and he's a solid to decent pass coverage linebacker. Here are the rest of the top linebacker free agents: Levante David, David Long, TJ Edwards, Tremaine Edmonds, and Jermaine Pratt. You know, if I could choose anybody on this list, it would be Tremaine Edmonds, just because he's the youngest on this list and probably the most high-profile guy. I just think Edmonds at 6'4", 240 pounds, and the speed and athletic ability that he brings to a football team, I think could really help the New York Giants. And I also like that Joe Schoen personally knows Tremaine Edmonds. Schoen used to be, obviously, the assistant general manager for the Buffalo Bills, so he knows the type of person and player that he is. Joe Schoen has talked about time and time again. He wants to know the people they're bringing in the building. And what better way to know him than you used to be a front office member on a team that he was drafted by in the first round and that you brought up and helped him develop in the game. I'd roll with Tremaine Edmonds. We showed you the top free agents at linebacker. Be a bunch of guys that you could want. Name a linebacker you want the Giants to sign. I want to hear from you down in the comment section. Make sure to give me a follow also over on Twitter. If I missed your question today, you can always DM me on Twitter, and I'll get back to you and answer your question. You can ask about anything. Giants, my life, anything. Who really cares? Give me a follow on Twitter at @MarshallGreen_.